Hello, my name is Daniel McClelland. This is a homework assignment for Professor Zhang for the class IST 852 of Penn State. We'll be designing a database for this assignment using a couple different methods. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to start out with a DB browser to kind of get, uh, you know, the basic format for it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new database. And it's going to be insurance.db. This was just a blank file that I used previously, so we're just going to override that and replace it. So as you can see, the table is completely blank. We haven't inserted any statements or created any sort of a schema for our database. So we're going to do just that now. So we have code to make some tables as far as that goes. And as soon as I copy and paste this in and execute it, I'll explain the tables a little bit more. So we're going to go to SQL, going to paste it, and then we are going to run the code using this command. So as we can see, our query executed successfully. So if we go back to our browse data, we can see that now, or our structure, I guess, we can see that we have 4 tables. We have cars, cities, contracts, and then a sequence. So if we go here, we can see the different tables that are code populated. We have an identity, which is going to be a primary key. It can't be null. It's going to be a variable character, and it's going to have a 10 characters max. Make, model, displacement are all going to be other, I guess, blanks in the table as far as that goes. Our next column, city, or our next table, excuse me, cities, is going to have identity and population. Identity is going to be the primary key. And you can tell that by this little key insignia right here, and it can't be a null value. Our next table, our primary key, is going to be identity. It's going to be an integer, and as you can see, it's primary key, and it auto increments. So that's what that code does as far as executing goes. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to fill some of these tables up. So if we want to go to execute, we can just go right here. We can look at the next section of the code. So this is going to populate our cars values, cities, and our contracts. And you can see we have all these nice insert into statements that are going to populate our tables. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all of these because we can. And we're going to paste it right into the execution. So as you can see, everything's properly formatted. We have red and green as we go. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to press the execute button. So as we can see, our query executed successfully. We have all of our values inserted into it. And if we go to browse data, we can check that. So we go back to our cars table, and we can see that we now have the identity, make, model, displacement, power, and luxury columns all filled. Which is good because that's ultimately what the goal was. We check our cities. We can see we have Siena, Rome, Milan, Florence, and Viterbo. And all the population columns have successfully filled as well. If we go to our contracts, we can see that we have 4 customers who all have contracts with all of their respective information columns filled out. So this will be the first step to making our database. We have successfully created a schema in DB browser, and we have successfully inserted statements into all of our blanks. Alright, so the next section of our project is going to be utilizing clips to make a template for our rules. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show the code. So we're going to open up our clips file. As we can see it right here. So what we're going to start out by doing is a template for the structure of a contract. We're going to have slot contract ID, car luxury, car power, car displacement, new customer, contract class, max refund, driver age, gender, city population, base price, final price, and no more bonus. So these right here are going to help us calculate what the final cost of the contract will be, final price, as it says right here. So this our first rule, the city population rule, has the highest saliences. This one can cancel out all the other bonuses if the customer lives in a city with a population greater than 100,000. So first part, we declare salience. It's 20. It has the highest. Our no more bonus category has to be false for this rule to trigger. And as you can see, our driver population has to be greater than 100,000. And if that's the case, then we modify the price, and we modify the final price times 0.65 times the base price. And that's if no more bonus equals true. So that kind of sums it up for that one. It's a relatively simple rule. For our next rule, this is the final price to base price. Salience is 15, so this has the second highest out of all of our rules. And this fires if the contract no more bonus is false, base price input for the base price, final price is going to be 0, and that is our modifier. So next is going to be a normal bonus rules. So this one's going to essentially give someone that's older than 26 10% on the final price. So we declare our rule. Salience is going to be 10, so it's slightly lower than our first two rules of 20 and 15. And this is our kind of if statement. So the no more bonus has to be false. The driver's age, as it's inputted, has to be greater than 26. And then we modify the price by doing the final price, or 0.9 times this previous final price input. And then if the driver age is 0, we don't reevaluate it. Our next normal bonus is going to be a woman for a small car. So we're going to declare our salience as 10. It's going to be the same as the previous one, so it's going to fire at the same time. We have the no more bonus has to be false. The driver gender must be female. The car displacement, as it's inputted, has to be less than 1.3. We go on our modifier, so the final price is going to be 0.95 of the previous price. If the car displacement is 1,000, just don't reevaluate it. Our next rule is going to be $50 off for less than 30 days of a customer, so it's going to be a new customer discount. We declare a salience, so it's going to be 10, which is going to be the exact same as our previous two. The no more bonus has to be false. The new customer has to be true. And then our modifier goes down to final price equals minus $50 from the final price. And if the new customer is false, don't reevaluate it. Our extra cost, so unfortunately some people will be paying a higher cost for their cars. Luxury cars will have to pay an extra 10% on the calculated price. So we define our rule and essentially tell you, if you have a luxury car, you're not going to have fun with getting insurance. Our salience is 5, so it's one of the lowest. So this will be one of the last ones to trigger. If we go to here, we can see that the car luxury has to be true, and the modifier is final price times 1.1. So that's, essentially 10%. And if car luxury is false, don't reevaluate it. The next one, power and luxury. Powerful cars will have to pay an additional $100. So, excuse me, it's very similar to our previous one. Our salience is 5, and then we move down to the modifier. If the car power is greater than 100, we modify the final price, and that's going to be the final price plus 100, shown right here. And if the car power is 0, don't reevaluate it. So these are going to be, that's a quick rundown of our rules and template that we're going to put in Eclipse. So now what we can go ahead and do is we can go ahead and load what we were just looking at essentially. So we're going to load it, and as we can see, all the rules are defining, and we're left with the true statement. And then we can go ahead and run them. So as it sees, one number of facts, one number of instances, 0 activations. So next what we're going to do is we're going to handle the Python section of the assignment. So I went ahead and I started the Jupyter notebook, and that's going to come up right here like this. So from the home, we're going to go to our insurance file, or our insurance extension. So we go here, and as kind of a quick explanation for each one. So first we're going to import SQLite. We're going to go ahead and run that. I went ahead and modified the location of the file to match ours, that insurance.db that we were working with earlier for DB browser. So we're going to go ahead and define our file. Next, we're going to connect to our database and retrieve all the records. So that's exactly what this code does as functions. So we're going to go ahead and run it. And that's going to put our cursor at this position right here. Next, we're going to convert it to the pandas data frame. That's going to make our calculations just a little bit easier to do. So we're going to go ahead and run that. And that ran successfully. Next, we're going to check on the data to make sure it's going as planned. And as we can see, it is. We have all of our contracts and everything that we need right here with our make, model, displacement, power, and luxury. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the base price. We're going to import numpy. And we're going to perform these calculations right here. So we're going to go ahead and run that. That ran successfully. Next, we're going to calculate the new customer flag. So that's going to import this datetime option, and we're going to have a kind of calculation that says true if the days are less than 30, else false for days. And that's going to go back to those requirements to whether they get the bonuses or not that we just put into clips, part of our rules. That's going to do all the calculations for us. Next, we're going to calculate the driver's, after we run that one, next we're going to calculate the driver's age. And that's going to utilize the customer's birth date until today's date. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to run that. Next, we're going to look at our data frame again, and we're going to see this right here. So we have all of our contract IDs, our birth date, contract class, our max refunds, model, displacement, power, driver age, new customer, luxury, power. So this is going to help us tell whether we can get those nice discounts or not. And those are going to be represented in the calculations that were right here. As far as calculating the customer flag, base price, and driver age. So now that we do that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to run that. The next is going to say, calculate male or female and put it into the data frame. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then it's going to go ahead and for customer gender, it's going to say male or female, as opposed to when it said M or F. And this calculation right here recodes some of the variables to fit it for our clips rules. Next, we're going to loop through the data frame, and we're going to format each row in the appropriate format so that clips can utilize it. So we're going to go ahead, and these are all comment statements. This is exactly what it's going to do right here, and then it's actually going to write it to our file that we're going to be utilizing in the next section. And right here, this is what it's going to open, and it's going to write out to initial TAC fact. So we're going to go ahead and run that. All right, and then the next step is going to be in clips, load the facts, run the rules, and output the facts. So in 1 second, we're going to do that. All right, so we're back to the next step, and that's going to be to load facts.txt, run the rules, and then output the facts to a different file. So first of all, we're going to go ahead and with a fresh clip session, we're going to load our constructs file. So as we can see, to find the template, the rule city population, reset price, older driver, woman small car, new customer discount, luxury car extra, and power extra. So all of our possible bonuses, discounts, or extras. So then what we're going to do is we're going to load our fact that was an output from our Jupyter notebook. So we're going to head and do that right here. We're just going to type in load facts, facts.txt, and we're going to go ahead and run that. And so there we go. We see all of our rules firing. We can make this a little bit bigger to kind of go through that. So it has went ahead and fired exactly like we thought it would. We have multiple activations of all of our rules, and as you can see, our salience goes from high to low, so just like in the order that we said that they would. So we can go ahead then, and after these rules have fired, we can go ahead and save the output. So what we're going to do is we're going to go save tac facts to the file facts underscore edited.text. Now we're going to go ahead and do that. And there we go. So that went ahead and showed that our rules fired. They fired in the salience that we thought they would. And they all had the proper amount of activations. We can just keep scrolling over to see all of our data. So after we have these Eclipse rules that have fired, and we save the facts to a new text file, we can go ahead and go back to Jupyter. So we can go ahead and go back to our Jupyter. We did that, so we can go ahead and click the run on that. Next, we're going to format the facts edited input to the correct format that we want it to be. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then we're going to check on the final results. So as we can see, our updated table now is nice and neat, and it tells you if there's no more bonus, if they get the new customer bonus, their final price, and everything like that. So this is a really useful tool then that we used to manipulate the information and displayed it in a really easy to use way here at the end of this. So at the very end of all of this, I'm going to do a little bit of talk about what I can glean from utilizing these sample codes and how I can apply it to my final project. So there were aspects of it that I really did like. I really liked using the Jupyter Notebook rather than just the straight up command prompt in Python. Obviously for our project it's going to be a little bit different since we're doing kind of a knowledge database for this small company that sells items to people at dog shows and such. So what we would have to change most likely, Vice having some of these tables, we would have some of the code would change, so it would read, you know, event number, event type, typical attendance, everything like that for some of the tables. Vice, we could even import or use some of these discounts like they did here. Perhaps at the shows they could use a small discount for people who buy so much of a product, and then judging by that they'd know how many to bring. As far as actual code changes, I really do like how we went between kind of the three systems in order to get a working database system. I think it was efficient and really nice. And like I said, obviously the names of all of the columns would change. Our database would look a little bit differently. As far as for DB browser, we wouldn't need quite so many tables. I believe 2 or 3 would be able to do it. For instance, events, and then we could even have like typical attendance, kind of dogs, because even the kind of dogs that would attend an event would be, you know, useful to determining what treats to bring. If most of the dogs at a certain event are going to be smaller breeds, you don't need to lug around most likely all of the larger treats that you would sell, or the larger collars, or the larger stock. And even our database could even kind of calculate it the same way that we did with our bonuses, except it could tell us, you know, recommend products for us to bring. You know, for instance, piece of the code that talks about the different bonuses that you could get essentially based on you know, your age or whether it's a luxury or not. You could have a lot of those for the animals themselves, as far as which treats to bring, you know, or what collars. So I think there's definitely stuff that you can take away from this lesson that could be useful to our final project. As far as code does, I mean, the foundations are going to have to change just because our project is so vastly different from this one. But a lot of the same principles can still be applied as far as recommendations and some of the calculations that we can use that were based off this one. So all in all, I think this was a good assignment. And while a lot of the code will have to change, and even for this even for this project, some of the sample code had to be changed, for instance, like the paths to the different directories and little stuff like that. But ultimately, I think there's a lot that we can glean from this that we'll be able to use for our final project.